Hey, what's going on YouTube, and welcome to another Season 7 League of Legends Champion Guide. In this one, I'm going to be covering top lane Malphite, the Shard of Monolith.
Rock solid.
Malphite's a very tanky champion that even scales off of armor, making him a great pick against high AD teams. His passive shield is pretty damn incredible for trading, and as long as you can get it to refresh, you're usually going to come out on top. He has a very strong initiation from his ultimate, and he can even fill multiple roles if he does have to go for a high AP build and do a lot of damage, instead of being that usual tanky frontliner. Malphite's abilities are then not too complex. The only skill shot he actually has is his ultimate, so he is fairly easy to pick up. Malphite, however, does require some pretty good decision making because it's not always a good idea to initiate a teamfight. When he does initiate a teamfight, he then relies on his team to follow up, and if they don't, it can be pretty annoying. Since he does scale off of armor, he's not going to be at his best if he does get picked against a very high AP team, and he is very mana hungry early on as well. Finally, a lot of the top laners out there will be able to bully you early on, but once you do acquire some defensive stats, you're going to have a pretty easy time. For my Masteries, I like to go for 18 Resolve and 12 Ferocity, grabbing Grasp of the Undying as my keystone mastery. This is easily my favorite pick because it will add a lot of nice sustain in that lane phase, and you're usually not going to be bullied out of lane too often. If you instead wanted to go for a bursty AP build, then you may want to consider getting Thunderlord's Decree instead, just to add a little bit of extra burst into your combo. Courage of the Colossus is something you could consider getting as well, but it doesn't actually do anything until level 6 because the only thing that can proc it is your ultimate. For your rune page, you have a couple different options, but I usually go for attack damage reds, armor yellows, magic resist blues, and ability power quints. The reason for the attack damage reds is just to make your last hitting a lot easier in the early game, and of course you can harass a little bit harder with those autos as well. If you felt like you didn't need that attack damage, then instead you could go for magic penetration just to do a little bit more damage with your all-ins. Since you do scale off of armor as well, you can get armor quints instead of that ability power as well against a very high AD team, especially if you're against a really hard matchup. For my summoner spells, I like to go for flash and teleport. Flash gives you a really reliable escape, and you can even combo it with your unstoppable force to engage from a very long distance. Teleport will then allow you to split push during the game and still make it to those teamfights and objectives. Malphite, of course, is a very strong flanker because of his ultimate, so you can use it for teleport ganks as well and pull off some really easy kills. If you're instead looking for some added kill pressure, or if you're against champion to abuse healing, then you may want to consider taking Ignite instead of Teleport. Now, Exhaust is also a pretty decent option over Teleport as well, especially if you're against a hard matchup or something that's just ridiculous like Yasuo. Malphite's passive is Granite Shield, and it can really increase your trading potential, especially if refreshed properly. Malphite will shield himself for 10% of his maximum health, refreshing if he has not taken damage in the last between 10 and 6 seconds. So this passive here has the potential to be incredibly strong in trades because of course you're blocking a portion of the damage. This is a passive that also gets stronger as the game progresses as well, since it does scale off of your maximum health. Whenever you're trading in the lane phase, try to get this to refresh so when you go in for your next trade, you'll block a portion of the damage. Malphite's Q is Seismic Shard, and this is a great way to poke the enemy champion and stick onto the target as well. When activated, Malphite sends a rock rolling to the target enemy, dealing magic damage to them upon impact, slowing them for 4 seconds, and gaining bonus movement speed equal to the amount the target is slowed by. Generally, you're going to want to use this ability throughout the lane phase to poke the enemy champion as much as possible. Whenever you are wanting to go for an all-in without your ultimate, you want to lead off with your Q so you will slow the target and get increased movement speed so you can quickly get up to them. It's easily one of our best abilities, and in most cases, I would recommend maxing it first. Malphite's W is Brutal Strikes, and it gives you some nice extra armor and increases your basic attack damage. This skill passively gives you increased armor, but when activated, for 6 seconds, Malphite's basic attacks deal bonus physical damage which splashes to enemies around his target. So this ability here is fantastic because not only does it increase your armor, but it also scales off of your armor, so it works pretty damn well. If you're trying to last hit under tower, you can activate this ability to get that bonus damage, but other than that, whenever you're going in for auto attacks on the enemy champion, make sure you activate it. Malphite's E is Ground Slam, and it adds some nice AoE damage which scales off of both your ability power and your armor. When activated, Malphite slams the ground, dealing magic damage to all nearby enemies and crippling them for 3 seconds. So this is a really nice ability that's great for both clearing minion waves and adding some nice harassment, especially on those melee champions. If you're against a melee champion you know you can easily bully, then this is a very viable first max, but against ranged champions, I'll always advise maxing Q first. When you're going in for an all-in combo, make sure you activate this as soon as possible to apply that cripple. Finally, Malphite's ultimate is Unstoppable Force, and it's an incredible initiation tool. When activated, Malphite dashes to the target location, becoming immune to crowd control effects for the duration, and, upon impact, dealing magic damage to all nearby enemies as well as knocking them up for 1.5 seconds. So this is a really strong ability because it does have a 1000 range and a 100 AP ratio. The downside, of course, is the fact that the cooldown is rather long at between a 130 and 100 second duration. You'll primarily want to use this ability to get onto the enemy backline to pop them up for your team to follow up, but if somebody gets on top of one of your carries, you can of course use this to peel as well and follow it up with a Q so the enemy will be slowed. For your skill order, you first want to put a point into your ultimate whenever you can at 6, 11, and 16. In most cases, especially against a ranged matchup, you'll want to max your Q ability first for its very high damage poke and its gap closing ability. You'll then want to move on to your E ability, Ground Slam, but this is one you consider taking first as well, especially if you're against a melee champion. Either way, we'll want to save our W ability for last. It is really solid, but it's not that great until we have some actual armor, so it's better in the later stages of the game anyways. For your all-in combo, you first want to jump onto the enemy champion with your ultimate, and then hit them with your E ability as soon as you land. At this point, follow up with a Seismic Shard, and then activate your W ability and start auto-attacking. With an Iceborne Gauntlet, you could put an extra auto-attack in there as well, but it will slow your combo by quite a bit. This is what your all-in combo will look like in full speed. In the lane phase, you'll want to start poking the enemy as soon as you have 2 points and your Seismic Shard. You are pretty damn mana hungry early on, so you usually don't want to waste too much mana when you do have level 1 Seismic Shard. If you need help last hitting, then activate your Brutal Strikes for that extra damage. Try not to let the minion wave near your tower though, because last hitting under it can really suck his Malphite. If you took the attack damage reds, then this may not be that big of an issue. Then you'll want to try to get your passive shield up as much as possible. It has the potential to win you trades over and over again, but it does have a long cooldown early on, so be careful not to get poked. Finally, in most cases you'll want to rush a Sunfire Cape, but if you are against an AP champion, then of course consider getting a magic resist item instead. In teamfights, you'll either find yourself being an initiator or being a peeler. Most often, your job will be to dive onto the enemy backline with your Unstoppable Force and pop up their carries so your team can easily follow up. If the enemy gets the initiation on you though, then you may need to use your Unstoppable Force to peel for your carries if the enemy gets on top of them quickly. This ability can easily save your AD carry's life since they can start kiting away afterwards. If possible, try and steal movement speed from an enemy carry that relies on it by using your Seismic Shard. This can make it a lot harder for them to escape or get onto a target that they want to get on top of. Now I'm going to cover a couple hard matchups, and first up is Garen. He's going to be hard for you because of the silence from his Q ability and the fact that he is pretty hard to bring down as well. Both his E ability and the Black Cleaver he tends to rush will shred your armor, which is a very bad thing for you. He'll get even more bonuses if you are marked as the villain, so if you are, make sure you're being insanely careful and don't trade. Stack as much armor as you can and deal with him later on. Next here we have Darius, who is your typical top lane bully. Tons of damage, tons of sustain, a way to pull you in, and of course armor penetration. Darius is a champion you'll want to try to poke down with your Q ability, but usually he'll sustain rather easily from his own Q ability. Make sure you don't get in long trades with him because his passive will stack and he'll get a ton of damage because of it. Wait until you have at least a couple armor items before you even think about all-inning him. Next here we have Swain, and he's going to be able to bully you as well, and you're going to have to buy an early magic resist item as well, which is something you don't really want to do. His sustain is absolutely crazy when he is level 6, so if you are wanting to ever all-in this guy, you may want to take Ignite in the top lane. He is rather immobile though, so wait until your jungler comes and then get an easy kill with your ultimate. Last here we have Nasus, and he's a hard matchup because usually this lane will become a farm lane, which is exactly what Nasus wants. He'll be able to max his Q ability in this matchup and get his Q rather high. If the game ends up going too long, well then you're usually going to see that raid boss Nasus that's impossible to kill, and he can even one-shot your AD or AP carry. Bully him as much as you can with your Q ability and try to shut down his farm wherever you can, but usually this matchup will turn out pretty bad. Alright, now let's finish this guide with our item build, which starts with either a Corrupting Potion and a Warding Totem, or a Doran's Ring, 2 Health Potions, and a Warding Totem. For our core build, we have the Sunfire Cape and the Iceborne Gauntlet. The Sunfire Cape will add some nice damage to push the lane, but also deal some nice damage in those long trades with a tanky top laner. Iceborne Gauntlet then gives you a ton of tanky stats as well, and that really nice Sheen proc to add more damage into your kit. If you're against an AP top laner, then you may want to consider getting a Spirit Visage or an Abyssal Scepter first instead. This will give you that necessary magic resist to get through that early lane phase, but usually you'll want to try to avoid this as much as possible, as you do scale off of armor. For our boot options, we first have the Ninja Tabis against AD teams, Merc Treads against AP and CC, Ionian Boots if you need some CDR, or Sork Shoes if you want some magic penetration to deal some more damage. Usually I'll stick with the Ninja Tabis, but the other boots are great as well. For our item pool, we first start with the magic resist section with the Spirit Visage, Abyssal Scepter, and the Banshee's Veil. All three are really great options, but if you do need CDR, then I would go for the Spirit Visage or the Abyssal Scepter. If you are already CDR capped, then Banshee's Veil is an excellent item as well because it can block a spell, which is great when you are going in for initiations. For our armor options, we have the Thornmail, the Randuin's, the Dead Man's Plate, and the Frozen Heart. Thornmail is a really solid item because it does have the most armor available, and it will reflect damage as well, making it great on Malphite. Randuin's is then a great item if you do need to reduce some critical strike damage against champions like Yasuo. If you're looking for some added mobility to find better engages, then Dead Man's Plate is also a pretty damn solid option. Then, if there is an attack speed reliant team, Frozen Heart is pretty incredible and it will give you 20% CDR, so with just that and an Iceborne Gauntlet, you'll already be CDR capped. For a mix of both, you could get the Guardian Angel to come back to life in the later stages of the game, or a Zizirot Portal to add some split push into your team. Then finally, if you just wanted some extra regeneration and health, you could get the Warmog's armor as well. For my normal full build though, I'll take my core, add a Spirit Visage and an Abyssal Scepter as long as there is a decent amount of AP, and then finish it off with a Randuin's. You'll be a pretty damn tanky champion since you have a lot of armor and magic resist in this build, and a pretty respectable health pool as well. All you pretty much have to do on Malphite is look at the enemy team's damage and then build accordingly. But that, ladies and gentlemen, covers everything I've got for Season 7 Malphite in the top lane. Don't forget to check out the video description below for a link to all my social medias and all sorts of other cool things. I do Ride Point giveaways at the end of every month on my Twitter, and I do also have a Discord server, so those are two you guys should definitely check out. But other than that, thank you guys a ton for watching the guide, I hope you guys did enjoy it, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!